Today, I'm sharing a recap of all the books that I read in February of 2022. I like to share all of the books that I read, not just the ones that I loved, to make sure that you're getting the best book recommendations, and we all have a limited amount of time to read, so I want to make sure you're not picking up something that might not be right for you. Plus, sometimes there's a book that I absolutely hated or just didn't love, but if you think it sounds interesting, it might be worth picking up yourself. To stay up to date on my latest book recommendations and find out what I've been reading each month, please hit the subscribe button below and make sure you hit that little bell so that you'll be notified anytime I have a new post to be released. I'm splitting up these monthly recaps according to the book format, so I'll start with physical books, any hardcovers or paperbacks. I usually get these books from the library, or every once in a while I get a book sent from a publisher, or as happens least often, I pick up a book off of my actual bookshelves. If you're like me, you might have a tendency to pick up the latest book rather than one that's been sitting on your shelf for a while. But I always try and get into some of those backlist books or books that have been on my TBR forever, at least once or twice a month, so that I know I'm at least reading some things that I already own. Then I'll get into audiobooks, anything that I've been listening to recently, and I usually get those from my library's audiobook selections. And finally, getting into my ebooks, and those are books that I read on my Kindle, so often those come from the library, or if I can get a publisher to approve me for a book on NetGalley, then I get to read it that way as well. Starting off with my physical books, the first one I read this month is The Fastest Way to Fall by Denise Williams. So I actually begged my husband to get me the Authentic Books box because this book was going to be featured in their December box. I read Denise Williams' How to Fail at Flirting last year and just fell in love with it. So when I heard that she had a new book coming out and it was going to be in one of my all-time favorite book boxes, I knew I had to have it. So it was the perfect Christmas present, and I'm finally getting around to reading it in February. So The Fastest Way to Fall features Britta, who is a journalist, and she is assigned to cover a new fitness app that's designed to focus more on your overall well-being rather than just a number on the scale. And she's assigned to a coach, and they immediately hit it off. And although he definitely provides her with good fitness tips, a lot of health and wellness advice, she can't deny that their chatting goes a little beyond just what's necessary for a fitness coach. On the other side of the phone is Wes. Now, Wes is actually one of the founders of the company, but he's been losing touch with the reasons why he started this company to begin with, so he just decides to take on a client, and that happens to be Britta. Now, both of them are crossing some lines here because they end up taking this new friendship, coach trainee relationship offline. They message outside of the app, they start to get together in person. So there's a lot at stake for both of these individuals. I love how Denise Williams handles these real life situations. She doesn't just let everyone off easy or wrap things up very neatly in a bow. There was a lot in How to Fail at Flirting and now The Fastest Way to Fall that were real life consequences. So it felt like such a realistic book, and it got me just so invested in the characters and their story. So this was an absolute 5-star read for me. It definitely lived up to my expectations, and I highly recommend this one. Next up is a book that I got sent to me by a publisher, and this one is Meet Me in the Margins by Melissa Ferguson. I have had my eye on this one for a while. As you can see, the cover is beautiful and perfect for book lovers, and this book certainly lived up to its cover. It is a book that is meant for bookworms, anyone who's interested in reading about the writing process or the publishing industry. Our main character, Claire, works at a publishing house, but it is a stodgy, old school publishing house that values literary fiction and nonfiction above all else. So Claire is working on writing her own manuscript, and it's a romance novel, so it is certainly not something that would be approved at her workplace. Well, one day she tries to hide the manuscript because she's in a meeting and the pages go everywhere. So she tucks her whole manuscript away into this secret hidden room that she found and just figures she'll pick it up later whenever she has the chance. Well, when she returns later, she finds that someone has written all these notes in the margins, and they're not exactly, let's say, nice notes. They're very critical with lots of tips and suggestions for how to make the manuscript better. So Claire is understandably pissed off that someone read her work and deigned to give her advice on this romance novel. But as she's reading through the notes, she realizes they're actually quite helpful, and her manuscript does need a lot of work. So this back and forth begins between leaving the pages inside the secret room, and the secret editor keeps adding notes and comments, and Claire and this mysterious editor end up talking about far more than just the book that they're working on. So it was a lot of fun trying to figure out who this mysterious editor was among all the different people that we know at the publishing house and the people that Claire interacted with. It was an absolute delight for book lovers to just be engrossed in this bookish setting and get to enjoy the world of books in so many different ways while reading a terrific novel. So this was another 5 stars for me. I absolutely loved it and cannot wait to see what Melissa Ferguson has up next. The next book is another one that I specifically requested from the publisher. It is the Paid Bridesmaid by Soraya Wilson. So this was another one where I read one of her books previously and fell in love with it, so I couldn't wait to read her latest release. So The Paid Bridesmaid features a woman whose job is to become a bridesmaid for any bride who needs someone to stand up next to her during the day that won't cause drama, who's willing to actually help out with all the wedding planning, or maybe it's a bride that doesn't have any super close friends and she wants that support throughout her big day. So Rachel provides this service for brides who desperately need someone to help them on the biggest day of their life. While she's at a high-profile wedding, Rachel meets one of the groomsmen and can't deny that there is some serious attraction there. But she has a hard and fast rule for her company that there is no getting involved with the groomsmen or guests at the wedding. Their entire business is based on secrecy, so they can't have any personal connection with people there in case this secret would get out. So this had a great case of secret identities, and although Rachel had a great reason for hiding her identity, it definitely turned into a major problem as her relationship with this handsome groomsman progressed. So there was a tropical setting for this wedding that was so much fun to explore, as well as lots of tension between these two, despite them both knowing that they really couldn't take it any further. This is another book where there was some serious fallout as a result of the actions of the characters involved, and I felt like it wrapped up in a way that felt realistic again. That's so important for me. I get taken out of the story if it's just too cutesy or everything turns out perfectly with, no real consequences for those involved. So I thought this did a great job of finding a way to get the happy ending that we all know and love while still addressing the fact that secrets were withheld and that, this relationship started based on some actual lies. So it did a great job just wrapping up the story in a way that felt realistic, but kept you engaged from start to finish. So I'm going to give this book 4.5 stars. It wasn't perfect, but I did really love it. If you've watched any of my previous book lists or recaps, you'll know that I adore the Bridgerton series. And my last physical book for February is book number 4, which is Romancing Mr. Bridgerton. So it pains me to say that I didn't love this one as much as the other books in the series. I don't know what happened. I just couldn't get into the story of Penelope and Colin as much as I have the previous 3 books. I still have high hopes for the rest of the series, but for some reason this one just didn't quite do it for me. So if you're interested, this one does feature Colin Bridgerton, who is the 3rd boy in the Bridgerton household, ABC, Colin, yes. And he has had a lifelong friendship with Penelope, who is one of his sister's best friends. Now, Penelope has had a crush on Colin for as long as she has known him, but he seems too far above her, and she knows that this crush never is really going to go anywhere. Well, one day, when Colin returns from some of his travels abroad, he starts to see Penelope in a new light, and he starts to realize how much he values their friendship, how funny she can be, how quick-witted she is, and not afraid to stand up for herself when she's around people that she's comfortable with. So much to his dismay and shock, Colin starts to realize that he might just be developing feelings for Penelope. But they start to find out some things about each other that they don't necessarily love. And both of them are forced to decide whether unearthing these secrets about each other is a deal breaker, or whether they think that they can find this relationship between them that goes far beyond friendship into actual love and marriage. So again, just something about these two that I didn't connect with nearly as much. It still has a lot of the traditional Julia Quinn writing that I know and love, but their story just didn't engage me as much as some of the other books have. So I put this one at a solid 3.5 stars. But I'm still looking forward to the next book in the series, and I certainly cannot wait for season 2 of the Netflix series to come out in a few weeks. With that, we'll move on to the audiobook that I read this month, or listened to this month. So I usually try and get through at least 1 or 2 audiobooks each month. Now that I have a commute to my job again, I have about an hour and a half each day that I can devote to listening to audiobooks. And I've been known to put it on at work if I'm, doing some meaningless task. So this month's audiobook is Stealing Home by Cheryl Woods. And if you've heard of the Netflix series Sweet Magnolias, this book series is what the TV show is based off of. So I was thrilled to find out that there was books that I could read that engrossed me in the Sweet Magnolias world, because I adore that TV show. I rewatched the first season, and I've been flying through season 2 so far. It actually follows the TV show pretty closely, which I love. I think it's great when the TV show and the book match up pretty well. I think it's more exciting to kind of flesh out the details and just get more into the story, but have that picture in my head of what these characters look like. So in this case, the TV show and the book are perfect complements for each other. This book was just as sweet and adorable and full of the small town drama that I loved from the TV show. So it was a really fun listen on audio because you got some of the southern accents as well, which I certainly love to hear. And it was a fast enough pace that I felt like I flew through it and wasn't, picking up other things to listen to instead of this one. So I'm looking forward to the next book in the series. I probably will wait a little bit before diving straight into book 2, since I like to mix up what types of audiobooks I'm listening to, but I'm certainly going to continue on with the series. And if you love the TV show, I would definitely recommend either reading or listening to Stealing Home. Shockingly, this month I don't have any ebooks that I read. For some reason, I have just been more in the mood to pick up a book and hold it and bring it along with me, whether I'm reading in bed or sitting on the couch while my toddler watches something on TV. So I haven't done any ebooks. Well, the reason might also be that my Kindle died, and it's a ton of effort to, walk downstairs to the charger and actually plug it in. So my Kindle has served as more of a bookmark than an actual reading device this month. But I started reading a book finally at the end of February, so I will have more ebooks to share with you next month. That wraps up my February reading recap. I hope you found a few books that are new to you, and please let me know in the comments if you're going to be picking any of these up or if you completely disagree with my ratings.